participating in this meeting.
So,
Any interested member of the public can participate telephonically or via internet by utilizing the web link or dial-in information printed on this agenda. Instructions on how to make a public comment during the meeting. At points in the meeting, when the meeting chair requests public comment, members of the public participating in the live meeting, either via internet or telephone, shall indicate their desire to speak. If participating via internet, please click the raise hand feature located within the Zoom application screen. If connected via telephone, please dial *9. All public comments shall be addressed to the board of directors and limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board of directors may choose to respond to comments or request staff to respond at the conclusion of the public comment. All right, so moving on to the agenda. Does anyone on the board have any changes or deletions to the agenda? All right, I'm seeing a lot of head shakes, so that means no. So we will consider the agenda adopted. Moving on to the consent calendar. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments or concerns about the consent calendar?
No, but we do public comment for.
Oh, we got to get
agenda.
public comment on the adoption. Any public comment on adoption?
yeah, 1 second. Stephen.
Hi. Yeah, it's just really a quick comment. You know, every meeting we have agenda items that we would like to talk about, and you know, lo and behold, there's really nothing on the agenda tonight. I'm not even sure, you know, almost there's no point in meeting. Seems odd, and maybe you guys can address this later in the meeting, but that's the only comment I have. Thanks.
Thanks for your comment, Stephen. All right, and we do have a light agenda this month. So moving on to the consent calendar. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments regarding the consent calendar?
Move to adopt the consent calendar.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Awesome, thank you. Any comments from the public?
I do not have any hands raised on the consent calendar.
All right, then shall we have a vote?
Board President Ruggieri,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Kilkenny,
Aye.
Director Oiserman,
Aye.
Director Shea.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item D, public comment open time for items not on the agenda. Any public comment?
Yeah, 1 second, please. Stephen.
Yeah, before I start, I want to congratulate Bill on seeing another 12 clicks. Happy birthday, Bill. And,
Thanks, Stephen.
and anyone else who's had a birthday in this last month. I think it's about 18 months that you guys have been on the board, the new 3 members, and of course for the older board members, it's been a lot longer. And you know, the question I just ask is, you know, how are you doing? How's the vision that you have about the future of our community? How's it working out? I see a community that is more beautiful and more friendly and more accessible, great recreation programs, excellent fire services, and a stellar open space. And part of that is in the future. And I hope you'll join me and others in actualizing that vision. To get there, we need to have goals. We need to have a common passion, and we need to work together. I guess this is not much different than what I've been saying all along, but you not only represent yourself, but you also represent the community. When I spoke to the Park and Recreation Committee earlier this month, I said, you know, I think it's time to start thinking in terms of user groups in our community. We have different populations with different needs. And I think we need to understand how well we're addressing those needs, just like a good business might. You know, we do great for the kids, and I am absolutely thrilled at what I'm seeing over there in the summer camps. It's just fabulous to see all those kids having fun, and the pool area and whatnot. But we have an even greater community and an even greater needs. I was over sitting in Quietwood Grove or Fireman's Picnic area today, and I'm looking at the tables, and you've got graffiti, you've got broken boards, and it doesn't look like that area has been raked or really any kind of attention paid to it. Of course, the water fountain's still broken, and I don't know how it gets overlooked, but I would hope that you would start addressing the full scope of the Marinwood CSD. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate the thoughtful comments. Moving on to district matters and the district manager report. Eric?
Yep, just a couple key kind of things here to update you on, and I've got updates since the time that this was written, so we'll just kind of take them one at a time and field any questions the board might have on each of these top two topics. In terms of the maintenance facility courtyard, as I put in here, we did execute an agreement with Massa Construction. The agreement at this point in time was for the base bid amount as we work through some value engineering opportunities on both the courtyards. We have met on site a few times, most recently even today. By the end of the week, I kind of am expecting a bit of a revised schedule of values coming from the contractor. So we'll have a better sense on what types of cost impacts we can achieve through some of these value engineering opportunities. And then by, I would say next week, I do expect them to actually start moving equipment into site, and you start really breaking ground and getting everything done. So we're still on schedule. It just takes a while to get things like contracts and bonds and everything else put together, but we are doing good, been very communicative with the builder. I'm very happy he's working on this project. And again, you know, just to kind of reiterate on the scope of this project, this is much more than just simply building a fence. I mean, there's a lot of grading, there's a lot of drainage that has to come into play. There's some earth movement that has to happen. There is foundation walls that have to be built, retaining walls. So, you know, this is still a large scope, and this, you know, ties in directly to the larger building. So it becomes an extension of that building. It's not just simply wrapping a fence around things. That said, I'm happy with where we're at. I'm happy with working with them. If Luke has anything else that he would like to add to that, he's certainly welcome to as well. Otherwise, if there's any specific questions on what's going on here, I'm happy to answer those. Like I said, I think we should have a better sense of ultimate project cost here as we are able to kind of work through some of these things and questions, and they're out there staking and getting things together and coming up with ideas. And as we settle on those, then he'll be able to provide us updated cost impacts on this.
Thanks, Eric. Luke, did you want to add anything?
I just was able to attend briefly part of a meeting today, and I just wanted to say I'm very encouraged at the direction things are going for the courtyard project, and I think that we've established a really good rapport with that company, and I think that I think that things seem to be moving in the right direction. So I'm excited to see what takes place over the next couple of months.
That's great. Well, I appreciate the work that you, Eric, that you've been doing on this, and Luke. spoke as well. And I also appreciate the value engineering discussions that you're having. Any comments or questions from the board?
I was just curious, just kind of being out of the loop for missing last meeting. Your final comment on this, Eric, is project is on target to be completed by the end of September. Is that
Correct.
just the western courtyard, or is that going to be both courtyards?
The whole kit and caboodle.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
Yep. The other thing we discussed last month, Chris, was we were going to take any of these extra costs out of your board stipend, since you were the one who wasn't here for that meeting to apply towards this
Perfect.
project.
Perfect. Okay, shoot.
Yeah. No, and that
We'll
was
have to have Bill figure out how to take nothing from nothing, but he's a tax guy, so he knows how that works.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to close with is, yes, we are on schedule, and it's the complete project by the end of September. Interesting update on the Miller Creek Trail. So just to kind of clarify, I know the wording that I put in here, especially as I reread it, is a little bit tricky. As you recall, this whole thing stems from a land use subdivision agreement that dates back to 2006, which contained a kind of a rough description of a proposed trail to go through the general area stretching from Las Colinas Avenue east to what's going to be an extension of Marinwood Avenue. When we originally went out to kind of scope that, we realized relatively quickly that it just was not a practical area to build a trail, and especially not the trail that was described. That was why we brought in Tim Best to kind of perform the trail feasibility report, and he actually produced a few trail options, one which is preferred and the only one at all recommended by staff, that has a trail cost of $274,000 estimate to construct. So when we took this information back to Robert Eves and kind of started talking, who is the developer of the senior living center, the proposed senior living center, and talking about what we were looking to do and what would be a reasonable financial contribution, we kind of came to a determination that it would make sense to produce one more cost estimate on what it would cost to actually build the trail as described in that 2006 agreement, since technically that is what they are obligated to. So we did that, and once again went back through Tim Best. One interesting note in that 2006 agreement is it actually calls for two trails. One is going along the creek and one is going up the steep hillside to the top of the hill right there. If you recall, when I sent that out, God, several months ago now. And we all, kind of quickly came to the realization that building a trail up that hillside was not feasible or desired, would lead to a lot of erosion problems, and we kind of decided we're just looking at the Creekside Trail. Well, Tim went ahead and put together the estimate for both anyway. The numbers that I listed in my report are actually strictly just for the Creekside Trail, with the 115 kind of being the subtotal, but he added a 25% contingency. Well, a subtotal on the Ridge Trail was another 44,000. So that brings you, just below around $159,000. In talking back with Robert Eves, he has said that his firm is prepared to contribute an amount in an amount equal to the construction subtotals of both of these. So you're looking at an amount closer to about $150,000, which in my mind, I think is an incredibly generous and significant contribution towards this overall project for something that is written in an agreement to cost, purportedly $30,000. Remembering again, he's not the original on this. He actually bought out the development rights to this senior living facility. So I have sent that back to him. I said, I appreciate you working with us on this. What I have done is I have forwarded this information to our legal counsel at the county counsel's office, and I've asked if they could draft up a agreement to put in place between our agency and the developer that kind of states the financial terms of their contribution. Everything would be contingent upon if the district did indeed actually construct this trail. So you're still looking at, in all honesty, probably another $150,000 that the district would need to come up with once you start getting into grading, permitting, and then any signage and other things that we might want to have to do along the way. You're gonna have to do biological studies, things like that. So I think ultimately he's looking at contributing approximately half of what is a much larger and much more significant trail project than what was originally described in his 2006 agreement. Again, I think that's an incredible win for the district. I think that the district, should the board want to continue to pursue this, it would be good to have this in a formalized agreement with the developer. But then to also start searching for other potential funding opportunities, which I think we would be very competitive for. And I think that we already have a large match amount to put towards some of these things, and grant funding opportunities like to know that the agencies they're funding are contributing large towards the projects as well. And speaking with John Campo, who is a senior resources planner for Marin County Open Space District, and also on our Park and Rec Commission, he has volunteered his time to help do a lot of this research and really kind of take on a bit of a project management role for this entire project. So I think throughout the course of this, it's taken a while to kind of get to this point, but I can tell you personally, I think that this is a more significant contribution from the developer than I was originally anticipating to be reasonable or realistic. And the fact that he kind of came back after looking at this report and said, we're prepared to contribute the amount it would do to do both of these trails, I thought was just more than reasonable on his end. So that's my personal opinion. Obviously, looking for any questions or thoughts the board might have on this, but I think if you can get half of this project basically funded through this developer, that's a huge win for us. And it'll be a trail that will be built properly, go through the right areas, require very little future maintenance, and be there for generations to come.
Yeah.
We have to approve the project before we can apply for grants.
Not necessarily. You giving direction to us is fine. You're not, I don't think, quite at a point to necessarily approve, or we're not committing. We're going to keep moving forward and we're going to keep doing this. I think that there's no harm in entering into a formal agreement with the developer that says, should the district continue to pursue this, then they will at that time contribute this financial amount towards it. I think, once you have a project in hand, there's nothing necessarily that needs to be approved at this point in time. Some grants call for a resolution, like the playground grant that we're working with right now, called for a resolution of the board. Well, when that time comes, the resolution would be presented.
Correct. So my question is in order to commit to this project, or in order to get funding, do we have to commit to this project?
Well, sure, because the funding would be project specific. But you don't need to do that at this point in time. I think let's see what funding opportunities are out there, and then we'll bring that information back.
So it's a kind of a chicken egg question, right? So do we?
Correct. Like,
right?
do we have to commit to this? And if we don't get the grants, does it have to come out of our budget? And do we have to move forward with it?
No, you do not. I think we would continue to move forward with the hope that we can find other supplemental funding towards this project. Now, if that funding doesn't exist and I bring it back to the board and I say, we're not able to get any grants, our time is coming to a close, is the board have an appetite to commit $150,000 towards this project, would be a conversation at that point in time. But you don't have to commit to that at this point in time, simply for us to research or even start applying for grants.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I just feel like I'm the outsider on this trail. So that's why.
We'll invite you for the first hike, though.
Huh?
We'll invite you for the first hike.
Yeah.
Have a ribbon cutting ceremony.
Considering I've never been on the ridge, this hike is perfect for me.
Eric, this sounds really good to me. I think the only thing that I'm thinking as, maybe we enter into, walk toward a more formal agreement would be that amount of money, but then maybe there's a statement about, what's to say if this takes 10 more years to build, that we would also build in the inflationary piece to it.
That's an interesting point, Chris, and that actually came up at the Park and Rec meeting. I think at this point in time, once there's a clause within the 2006 agreement that basically states the trail construction will start when the bridge and the road construction has happened. So I think at that point, you can't necessarily put it on in my opinion, if it takes us 5 years longer to commit to this, I don't see how you could hold that against the developer per se. I think that's a risk that we take, and they're ready to contribute. The conditions have been met. Here's the financial contribution. And if we don't want to do it for another 5 years, then we say, okay, well, we're going to wait 5 years and then it's going to cost you another $50,000 instead. If what I'm saying is making sense, as opposed to he's got the contribution, the delay would not be on their end. I think it's fair that this is ratcheted up so much because the delay has entirely been on them since 2006. He is now saying, I'm ready to contribute. We have a timeline for when we expect this road. He's hoping to get that bridge and road work done before they shut down that kind of work, which is generally mid-October. Otherwise, he has to wait till spring due to environmental regulations before he can do any of that kind of work. And
Is that what all
trail-
the work is that's going on right now?
No, the work that's going
No.
on down there right now, it has to do with the
Cleanup.
excavation of Marinwood Plaza. It has
Oh, okay.
nothing to do with the senior living facility project.
Okay,
So I guess to answer your question, Chris, if I'm making sense, they're basically at a point where they're ready for us to go. So any further delay from this point would actually be on the district's part, not on the developer's part. So I don't know how reasonable it is to go back and say, well, we need 3 more years and there's going to be some inflation in those 3 years when he's saying, I'm ready now.
Right. No, that makes, I understand what you're saying for sure. I guess maybe then the addendum that I would want is if for some reason they have to delay the project, which
Of course.
we over the last few years, we've definitely seen, reasons outside of anybody's control that projects are delayed, and then that affects the bottom line cost.
That's actually a very good point, Chris, and I will certainly bring that up with legal when they draft something up too, that just says, should it be, should construction of the roadway or the bridge or anything be delayed, thus delaying the trail construction, revised estimates will be taken at that time.
For me, that would be excellent. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would like that.
I think it's a great suggestion.
Thanks, Chris. Bill, your hand was up.
Yes, out of curiosity, since you brought up the bridge and road construction, and if they're not done by October, they're going to move into spring. Does that mean there's going to be movement in the next month or so?
That was their original, when he sent the letter that I had actually included in a board packet a meeting or two ago. That was the timeline that they were on, was to be able to get this done before they shut down that work, which I want to say is generally around August 15th. And that kind of comes from the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the California Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife.
Because that's going to be kind of a large project that could take a few months.
Yeah, the bigger part of that project is getting the bridge done. From
Yeah.
there, the roadway, I don't think is quite as impacted, but they can't get the roadway done until the bridge is done.
That's it. So we could get the go-ahead, it would be probably next spring to start the trail building. If
Um,
we can get some grant movement.
you could. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, the other thing to keep in mind, and this is still, just kind of looking at it from a big picture, and, this is still in no way, shape, or form guaranteed to happen. But Marinwood Plaza is part of the housing element sites for potential additional housing. So you're also looking at, a slew of additional residents beyond just the senior facility that could be living, within steps of the other end of this trail. So I just, the trail I think would be a popular trail, not only just for people wanting to take a leisurely walk, but you'll have a lot of school-age children that can use this trail to get to the middle school, can use this trail to come to the community center or Marinwood Park without having to kind of walk along the sidewalks of busy streets. You just have to cross one street and you're on your way.
Yeah. Okay.
Eric. Sivan.
so some of my question was answered. So definitely we have to wait until the road is built for us to start our work, but we can start looking for funding and getting that going and just basically have it on standby.
Yeah, we can certainly start looking for funding. You know, the one clause with a lot of these types of funding opportunities is they have, you know, deadlines and project completion deadlines. So we just have to keep that in mind. But a lot of these types of fundings actually are usually annual or biannual events, not like one-time funding events. And this is where I'm going to lean heavily on John Campo, because finding every avenue of funding source for these types of
Right.
project is a key part of his job. And he's again volunteered his time and efforts to help us pursue these. So we just need, you know, we haven't really started moving forward. We're waiting to kind of get all of the information in place, just in terms of the financial contribution on the other end and
Okay.
timing. I do kind of agree with what Bill's saying to some point. If they haven't really started to break ground yet on getting that bridge done and worked, 3 months from now they have it completed is tricky, but I don't know.
Okay.
He's also not hamstrung by the various government codes that make projects take 3 times as long as the private industry gets them done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My question, a lot of it got answered, but why wouldn't we start until they started?
Well, one, the trail would end nowhere. And then 2, that's part of the clause of the 2006 agreement. Because the trail ultimately is going to end on that road that they're building. Otherwise, it just kind of end in open space and you'd have to traverse across a creek, which really isn't a recommended thing to take it anywhere. It would just end kind of next to the freeway, landlocked by where the creek channel runs through.
So are we potentially gonna start it after they complete?
That's the intention, yes.
Okay.
You just brought up an interesting, I think, little twist to this whole thing. If this becomes a, you know, I will stop from calling it a thoroughfare, but if it becomes a major pathway for the kids to, you know, to cut to, let's say, the middle schoolers to get to Miller Creek and things like that, there's part of me that wonders, should we be thinking about making this an all seasons type of pathway? That, you know, obviously that would cost a lot more, but maybe as the other developers get into play with the housing, it would be interesting to see if there was a connection there.
Well, I'm not 100% sure I understand.
I think what I'm
your
what I'm
definition of all
envisioning, having
seasons
just
is?
been on, I was
The
just
track,
in Incline, and they built, if anybody hasn't been on the Impossible Trail, from Incline to Sand Harbor, do yourself a favor and do it. It's bridges over the banks of Lake Tahoe. I mean, it's amazing, but it is, in that sense, it's, you know, it's paved, it's a little bit wider, and would allow access for bikers all throughout the year, as opposed to what we would have now, which is, you know, probably more 3 seasons in our neighborhood. Definitely not something I'm saying we need to go any further on right now, but it's, if something happens before we start this building of our trail, we might want to think about that.
Well, yeah, I think you'd be entering into an entirely different type of project. And I think you would quickly be into a 7-figure project and above, potentially 8, not to mention, I don't even know if you could get the proper permitting for that, because you're talking about putting impervious surfaces through a watershed. I don't mean to poo-poo your idea here, Chris. I just think
don't worry.
it might be a
I'm
little
just-
grand. But I do want
my
to
mind just
say,
starts spinning on stuff that you know, starts to help the community in ways that I hadn't originally anticipated. But
yeah,
all I'm saying is, if for some reason this gets pushed and housing starts coming in and really being planned and a developer for there, I think that's, you know, a quick step that we could perhaps take a look at. But I don't need to extend tonight's meeting on that. I'm just dreaming.
yeah. Well, I will say, just to kind of this trail that the only trail staff's recommending and the one that's designed, I mean, this is essentially an all-season trail. This is a high quality, high construction bid, low grading, you know, slopes not to exceed, you know, 8% or 10% or whatever the best practice standards are. So outside of an actual rainy day, I think that this trail would be as accessible all year long as any trail.
And that's why we picked this one.
Correct.
And this cost, I mean, the cost point was much larger, but that's literally why we picked it, was that we anticipated that it would be very highly used and we wanted to make sure it was as safe as possible. and could withstand as much as possible.
Totally. I'm all in. No worries.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the dialogue. Anything from the public?
Yep, 1 second. Stephen.
My computer crashed again. I don't know what it is about these meetings, but at the last 2 Zoom meetings, my computer's crashed. With regards to the trail, I think would be helpful to think in terms of sections of the trail. There's some sections that are going to need a bunch of work, retaining walls, grading, but the rest of it is going to be more or less a standard trail and will not be complicated. My estimate is at least 3/4 of the distance is not anything special as far as construction needs go. That said, I think I do like the idea that, yeah, let's make it passable by people as well as bicycles. So we want something along the lines of what's in Marinwood Park, in the dog leg section. I think that would be great. I did some back of the envelope calculations on the fence project that you approved for $258,000. And there's 91 feet, I think, if I added that up correctly from the drawings, 91 linear feet. And this is how fences are bid out. And we're paying $2,800 per linear foot. Of course, that figure also includes the grading and some other stuff. But if you're just looking at the cost of a fence, we've got a gold-plated fence surrounding a gold-plated maintenance shed, and it's actually kind of stunning. I did look at some calculations for metal fencing that you typically see, like the wrought iron fencing that you typically see in facilities like this. And it runs from $100 to $300 per linear foot. So we're paying a huge premium for this fence, which, by the way, by its design with horizontal slats, will be very easily scalable and not very secure. Might look nice, but we're paying a whole lot for it. And it's a shame, because if we were to have a different design, we would have enough money for the Miller Creek Trail as well, with the funding that we have set aside. We're just spending, and it's just unbelievable to me. I don't see how we achieve anything in this district if we don't have a little bit better fiscal discipline in these projects. It is not an area of expertise for our business manager, but a manager who has practical experience in this area would be able to determine how to best utilize our funding. I have more to say later. I apologize for running on.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. All right, then, moving on to fire department matters. Draft minutes of fire commission meeting review. Director Kilkenny.
This one was the shortest meeting that I've ever been to. Because Chief White wasn't there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Chief. There really wasn't much that we went over. So I don't have that much to report back. Sorry.
Can I chime in here? One of the things that did come up, a discussion for potential future agenda items, was the possibility of actually moving from having monthly commission meetings to bi-monthly commission meetings, with the notion that we could have, in those off months, always look at calling a special meeting if there's initiatives or things that also need to be discussed. I think to Kathleen's point, not every meeting has a lot to discuss. Further, getting people to commit to monthly versus bi-monthly might be easier on the bi-monthly end as we're trying to recruit other commissioners. So wanted to kind of take a little bit of a temperature of the board on that, and then said we'd report back to the commission with their next meeting.
So do you guys care if the fire commission meets every other month or every month?
I mean, it's been monthly for as long as I've been on the board. I do know that there's very light months that not much is discussed, and I mean, I'm okay with it as long as
Which one?
with just doing bi-monthly, as long as the commissioners and our firefighters and our chief says that it's okay, that they feel like we're addressing their needs, then I think it's a great idea.
I would agree with Savon. If the commission and the firefighters think that this is a reasonable idea, I don't see why we would disagree.
Yeah,
So
and then of course, if there's material to require meetings more frequently, then you have the discretion to change that, right?
You can always call a special meeting in between the regular meetings.
Mhm.
So I don't see any issue.
There was an incident or something that we had to review. It was presented to meet every other month on calendar, and then with a special request if needed.
Do they need the 2-week notice also, just like we do, Eric? I'm just asking.
A 2-week notice.
2 week?
Or
Wait,
Oh,
so
10 days, sorry, 10 days. The week, like the notice,
72
72
hours.
hours, sorry.
Yes, it's
70
all.
I
It's
am not having a good day here. Sorry
it's
about this,
subject to
everybody.
the Brown Act. I have some thoughts, but I'll let Bill speak first.
yeah.
It's, yeah, bi-monthly, there's not a lot going on with the fire commission, not really. During the year, there's a few meetings that need to be done. I'll agree. I think that's, as long as everyone agrees to it, that's good. Fire department is the main crux where that goes. But to my mind, I noticed the eucalyptus trees in the median have been brought up over and over and over and over again. And it's like, there's never going to be a resolution to satisfy Tom's bringing it up. And I'm wondering why bother?
Why we address it each time?
It's pointless
Well, there's a lot of things.
because it's the county that has to do something to that. And the
Correct.
county's never going to take those down unless there's a fire there.
Correct, but it doesn't mean that he can't bring it up, just like,
I know, but it's again, kind of a useless waste of air talking.
correct, so we will only.
Is there a reason why we're discussing the topics at the fire commission meeting?
Well,
Yeah.
it was on the fire commission minutes.
Okay, got it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So then they'll
Been on
only
the
be
minutes almost every month.
Got it.
Well, then they'll be on the minutes every other month.
It's like,
Can I ask if Chief White has any thoughts on the commission going to bi-monthly as opposed to monthly?
Good evening, directors and District Manager Drykus. And I actually, I think if the commission themselves have asked for this, obviously they see probably less value in meeting monthly. I certainly think we can build enough content for a bi-monthly meeting without a challenge. There are months when things are not as full for one reason or another, but I certainly don't see any problem with doing it on a bi-monthly basis. And I think the caveat was, if there's something that arises that we need to meet on, we still have the ability to do so. So I certainly can support that.
Okay. The way that this would happen from a technical standpoint is we'll bring this back as a formal agenda item to the commission at their next meeting. It would require a bylaws amendment because the meeting schedule is written into the fire commission bylaws. And if they approve to recommend that, it would come back to the board at your next meeting for formal approval to amend the fire commission bylaws, because the board is the authority for that. And then for the record, what kind of got discussed would be moving to every even month, which also kind of it gets rid of some holiday conflicts with the very beginning of January. A lot of times right around the 4th of July or holiday conflicts. So moving to the even months has fewer conflicting dates that would be involved as well.
And it wouldn't be replaced, like we'd still get Chief's White report in this meeting every month. So it's realistically, it's not like if they have questions, they can't attend this one on the odd months
Correct.
if they wanted to.
Yeah, and they get notified of all the agenda packets that go out too. Okay, well, we can move forward on that then, and it'll be a formal topic on the next commission meeting with a report on how what the board had to say about it, and then it'll come back to this board for any formal action at your next meeting.
Thank you. Any public comment on the draft minutes?
Yeah, 1 second. Stephen.
Well, I'm glad you had a quick meeting. I'd like to remind everybody that the fire department is responsible for spending half of our budget in the district, or actually more, I think. And I honestly, I hate meetings that have no point to them. It sounded like the last meeting didn't get a lot done. I do think having that touchstone, regular touchstone, is good, not only for the fire department, but for the community at large. And so I would, I mean, if someone can't spend, 26 minutes in once a month, to this, maybe they shouldn't be serving on the board. Or maybe we should think of a different way to get the function done. But it's kind of frustrating. At the last CSD meeting, my good friend, one of the board directors disappeared for 30 minutes off the Zoom call. I don't know what was going on, but he popped up at the end. And I think that really just shows a real disrespect for process, public process. And I would hope that we could think of ways to do that. You guys can do your job better, serve the public, and certainly being present once a month is not a big commitment. So I'd like you to hear a different point of view on this. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, so moving on to the to Chief Officer Report and Activity Summary. Chief White.
All right, thank you, and good evening again, everyone. I want to just cover a few key items on my report, but I won't go too deep in detail on some of them, as they are probably not of very much interest. But the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Board of Directors recently approved the executive staff's request to secure office space and meeting space. This was a request that was placed as a result of 51 plus Brown Act meetings and multiple staff having to go offsite to numerous locations to hold various meetings. And so, given the potential for confusion or conflict or misunderstandings about where meetings will be held, they feel like this will be a more consistent practice and location to offer everyone a chance to go and park and be present at a consistent location. And so my understanding after a couple of questions I posed was that first I wanted to know, was there a lot of opposition to this, and if so, why? And then the other question was, what is the market rate for the the office space that is being sought, because the expense was somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of $125,000 a year. But from what I'm told, the rental price for the space is substantially below market. And as such, it really made more sense to try to land on a consistent location, as I indicated earlier. So with that, more of the meetings that are going to be held as the pandemic hopefully starts to subside at some point will be held probably at a centric location. I understand it's called the Commons. I'm not very familiar with that location, but if any of you know where the Commons are, that's the name that I heard buzzing around as the potential location for the meeting. Vegetation management, approximately 20 acres of goat grazing has been completed. And I believe that really summarizes all the goat grazing that was scheduled to take place. 4+ acres were done off of Grasshopper Hill, and another nearly 16 acres were done off of Idleberry Road. And with that, the direct assistance program that had been discussed previously, where it offers the ability for homeowners to improve defensible space, utilizing the work and the assistance of the fire foundry crews. That work continues. Just next week, as an example, they've got, or excuse me, the week after next, pardon me, I'm getting my statements confused. The end of June into the first week in July, there were 5 additional homes that were provided with that assistance. And then there's another free direct assistance round that's scheduled to take place between July 25th and July 28th. And so that work is still continuing. And there's certainly an interest in trying to meet as many opportunities as we can provide assistance for. And so there was a couple of forms that I included. Eric, did I make sure I got those forms to you this go around, or?
Yeah, they're in here.
Okay, great. So those were the request forms, and hopefully if you know of anyone that could use and benefit from Italian cypress or some of the juniper removal that the crews have been responsible for doing, which can be fairly pricey, this would certainly be a great opportunity to share this information with community members who otherwise might need some assistance with vegetation removal. So we're still accepting applicants. Please encourage anyone you know to apply ASAP though. And moving on to chipper days. There were some chipper days that were listed, and they're actually contained in the link as well that's embedded in the report. And they've got some coming up next week, as a matter of fact, and another round of chipper days moving forward into October. In addition, the week of August 29th, Big Rock and Blackstone zones will receive chipper assistance. And so we don't have the full number of stats for all the chipper days and or the amount of chipped material, but we're hoping to get that so that I can provide that in a future report and just give you an idea as to the scale of the amount of work that's been conducted and the amount of tonnage that's been removed from the various locations that have been benefited from receiving the chipper services. Happy to report that as of the date of this report, when I submitted it, we had a total of 20 Marinwood, Lucas Valley Road grant applications. And so 11 of those have already been approved for roughly $9,500. And some of the other ones were still pending. There was some home hardening grants totaling $5,774, 5 vegetation grants, which were totaling $3,725. And this is based on some of the resident and documented expenditures that were in excess of $13,000 towards vegetation management. The remaining have pending statuses, as I mentioned. There were 7 that needed supporting documentation. There's 1 being escalated to vegetation management unit leadership for further evaluation to see whether they qualify. And then 1 may not actually be approved because it may not meet the grant requirements that were outlined. And so that's 1 out of 20. Hopefully that individual will have an opportunity to course correct or maybe find some alternative assistance that can help achieve fuel reduction on their property. At the time of the report.
Quick chipper day question.
Sure.
So I'm if I understand, like, let's say I have a hill in my backyard. If I take some stuff down from my backyard, do I just drag it out to the street, or do I have to contact the chipping service? How does that? I'm just like wanting to share this with my neighbors and trying to figure out the best way to have them take advantage of this to cut down on our fire fuel.
I think if you're able to get it to street side before the chipper days, that probably really helps the chipper crews because they can continue to get more done without having to go onto your property and try to remove it off site. But there are probably some instances where individuals need support and assistance doing just that. So I think they're probably working on a case by case basis, depending
Okay.
on what's being asked of them at that particular time. But we always encourage people to bring it street side if possible, so that it's just a matter of pick up and go and load and go, if you will, and be able to move on to the next property. Because as you can imagine, if they have to go into every property and start removing and then bringing it street side and then doing the chipping, it just takes that much more time and it reduces their ability to flourish at what they're doing. So if you can,
Totally.
we certainly encourage you to bring it street side.
Okay, and do people who take advantage of this, do we have to contact the service ahead of time so they know to come to our residence?
Yes, and
Okay.
again, there should be something that indicates it's going to happen in your area, but you want to be in contact with them, advising them that you're available for the support as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate it.
No worries. It
Chris,
looks
if
like
you-
Eric might have something to add as well.
Yeah, Chris, if you just go to the link that's in the chief's report there for the chipper days, and you type in your address, it'll tell you exactly what day you reserve you reserve one of the slots for it, and then yes, the night before you just bring it all down to the curb, and they come through and during those days and chip it and haul it off. But
Perfect.
yes, you do need to reserve it so they know that's where to stop, and then they do cut it off once a certain number is hit because they only have so much time and allocation to be able to do it.
So totally makes sense. Do we get that out to the public in a way that, is that something that we put on the website? Is that, or do we put signs up? Just seems like that would be something we'd want to let the neighborhood know.
Yeah, we've definitely put out blasts and we've put out information, as well as not only us, but Santa Fe, their deputy emergency manager, Quinn Gordon, has put out a lot of information via Nextdoor. And then obviously all over the fire site, safe site is all the information too, but we certainly try to push it out the best we can.
Yeah, I encourage others to also look at Fire Safe Marin in case they're adding additional chipper days as well. There may be updated information there that could surface about additional chipper days that could be scheduled.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So the Waldorf School concern was brought to my attention a while back, and I ensured that one of our vegetation management unit specialists went out to do a site visit and discuss concerns with the individuals who are representatives of the property. And so given that, they're still working with the actual school staff there to address the concerns. They didn't particularly see the bundles that were brought to my attention as a significant concern. I did share with them in the event that that pile is not decomposing, but yet it's dry and something were to happen and ignite it, it could become should we say, really ignitable and easily spread fuel. But from their inspection, they didn't see a significant issue, but they're going to provide me with more information and updates on this for our next report coming up next month. So I just wanted to give you an update that that is being looked into. COVID-19. Wow, I had hoped I wouldn't be reporting on COVID, at this point. Unfortunately, there's still some significant challenges in our communities with COVID and within our state, if not the entire country. And so, those challenges range from, what's going on here locally to what's happening statewide, and what's happening also with some of our military and first responders. And so I saw some interesting information about the Army National Guard, and about 13,000 of the forces had not been vaccinated, which equated to roughly 40,000 individuals. And because of them, there's about 14,000 of those who outright just refused, didn't offer up a request for an accommodation or an exemption for medical or religious reasons. And they may be forced out of the service. And their deadline was to June 30th to basically comply. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the number of individuals ranges between 20 to 30% of the Guard members in 6 states who are also not vaccinated, and 10% more in 43 other states still need shots. And so only 7,000 out of the 40,000 have sought exemptions. And I don't know where they're going to land on that. But the Army, by contrast, has 99% of the members in the service vaccinated, with 1% not being vaccinated, or fewer than 1% at this point. So it was interesting to note that in all but one state, New Jersey, the Army National Guard soldiers are actually vaccinated at a higher rate than the general population in their state. And so while these numbers were important to notice, it just kind of speaks to the situation that we're facing right now as a country in general, where not everybody's on the same page regarding vaccination. And this is continuing to become an ongoing concern for us as the subvariants continue to surface and create new infections. So at the time of the report, the vaccinations were authorized by the FDA for emergency authorization for children that were aged 6 months to 5 years. And that in and of itself is a relief to a lot of parents who have been waiting to get their toddlers vaccination. But there were some concerns about myocarditis being something that they thought or worried, parents thought or worried might be something that children could be impacted by taking the vaccination. But from what I understand, it's just the opposite. It's that the vaccination will help prevent myocarditis, which is caused, or one of the signs or symptoms rather, of being infected with COVID. And so it's a tough call to make. Do I take the chance on the vaccination, or do I take the chance on being infected? And my thought is, given all the level of infection right now and how it's still, moving the way it is, I think vaccination still makes the most sense. I understand there's also a lot of targeting with the newer vaccines that are coming out to target the variants and the subvariants in a way that the original vaccines weren't designed to do. So with that, there's a lot of effort underway with Pfizer, Moderna, and others to try to ensure that they're providing something that's effective for the younger kids as well as the adults as they move forward with potential future boosters. So more information will follow on that. But I guess the last thing I would share about this is the COVID infection rates for the county and for the region in general are at a severe point at this point in time. If you were to look to rate the way we used to rate infections based on color coding, we'd actually be in the highest rate right now, where they were looking at continued social distancing. They would consider us to need to continue to mask, to continue to do all those things that we have been doing early on in the pandemic. Those things aren't being communicated everywhere, but mask use seems to still be a prudent thing to do to reduce infection and or exposure. So although we're not seeing a lot of mandates right now, I'm suspecting that depending on what happens over the next several weeks, if the numbers continue to rise the way they have, mask mandates could be something that are revisited, even as unpopular as they may be, just to ensure that they control the infection rates to some degree, or at least do something to prevent them from continuing to escalate. So more on that will follow. Fire incidents. We had a small grass fire on Mount Shasta Road and, Lucas Valley Road. And so if you look at the photographs, it's a roadside incident that took place. Our crews got out there pretty quickly and were able to contain the incident to roughly about 1/8 of an acre. The unusual thing about this is there's a stump grinder that's right in the vicinity there, and no one was there near the stump grinder to claim ownership over what occurred, but the stump grinder was partially melted, which kind of gives you a clue that maybe this stump grinder had been abandoned while it was still hot, and somehow or another ignited the grass in that area. So fortunately, our crews got there pretty quickly. It was a slow rate of spread because of the work that had already been done in the area. But that being said, our crews got out and did everything they could to mitigate this and stop it from threatening some of the other structures that were in the immediate area. The MCFIT team, Marin County Fire Investigation Team, is still supposed to be investigating this, but I think we have the smoking gun, if you will, given what happened. So I don't know how much investigation they're putting into it, except maybe trying to figure out who owned the device. But outside of that, they had to go back a couple of times to put out hotspots. And that's a concern, because if you can't extinguish something like this effectively, and then the wind kicks up, it can carry some of these burned embers and other things into nearby vegetation or even distant vegetation and create an issue. So we were back out a couple of times to address the hotspots. I saw something interesting the other day on television that I think has a lot of utility, and I saw it in a remote area. So it just made me think, why haven't we thought about this before? They had what looked like lawn sprinklers that you might find at a park somewhere out in a forested area where it had been burned, and it was over there just actually spraying water to probably do just what I was trying to describe here, which was prevent rekindles or reignition. And I'm assuming they're using some sort of portable or lengthy connection to a static source. Otherwise, they'd be, having to tap into a substantial amount of water to do this. But something like this seems to have value. Where I wonder if we could set up a portable operation where we just use one of the back and forth, easily purchased at Home Depot or other location, to actually just continue to spray water in that location so our crews don't have to stay on site and can be available for other emergencies. So that's something I'm going to give some consideration and thought to on how we could do something just like this effectively, but something that makes sense and can operate for at least an hour or two, soaking down an area independently without having to be monitored. So more to follow on that. But again, this incident combined with what I saw on the news recently is what kind of prompted me to think about maybe we've got an option we need to consider. Last but not least, the numbers, wow, very close to looking like numbers I always see, but they're still slightly different, but they're still sub 5 minutes, 30 seconds. Still amazing, still a great indication of our crews knowing their district, knowing how to get out the door quickly and get on scene quickly. 5 minutes, 26 seconds. I'll put that up against anybody. And I think I've said that to you before. I'll put that up against any agency, unless it's a agency that's only 2 square blocks, and that's all they've got. But in this case, our personnel are getting out and getting on scene quickly. And so I have to always show my appreciation for that, because that to me is the cornerstone of what the fire service does. We get out and we get on scene quickly to make a difference as best we can quickly. And when you have people to do this consistently over and over again, and you don't even have to remind them, you don't have to discuss turnout or total response times with them at any point, that means they're dialed in a way that a lot of agencies would benefit from seeing and learning from. So I'm going to always encourage them to continue to do their best, but I just want you to know that you are actually working and being assisted by some of the best I've seen in the business. So that's the summary of my report, and I'm available for any questions I hope I have answers for.
Thanks, Chief.
Absolutely.
Any questions from the board? No. All right. Anything from the public?
There are no hands raised, Lisa. I would say, just to answer Chief's question from the beginning of his report, Marin Commons is actually 1600 Los Gamos. So it's just down the road. It's the same place where OES, where Santa Fe Fire used to have their administrative offices. That's
I
just
was
a
there
fancy
briefly.
name that nobody calls it.
Isn't
I
it
was
where the
there
sheriff?
briefly, and for some
where the
reason, I was
sheriff
thinking of
currently is.
Commons being somewhere like in Larkspur or somewhere in that direction. I don't know why I didn't place it with right where I used to be. That's strange. Wow.
Puts
Because
the
it-
office is right down the street.
Yeah.
Because they took the sign down and put up Kaiser Permanente.
Ah, okay.
It used to say Marin Commons.
That'll make it very convenient for us to go and visit, huh?
Yes.
Um,
Well, very good. Well, again, Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I hope your daughter's feeling better. Last time you said she had just come down with COVID, so I'm hoping she's feeling better.
Yeah, she's doing a lot better. She's got a lot of attitude now and everything that she used to have pre-COVID. So yeah, she's doing great. But thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Maybe she'll get vaccinated this time.
I thought that would be the case. And I even tried to make the argument that, you've got COVID and be vaccinated. They say you have even more protection than the average person. And it fell on deaf ears. That's probably the best way to put it. So, yeah.
Sorry.
She practiced her eye
Dad
roll.
doesn't know best in this case, right?
Yeah, exactly. She got her eye roll back. Does she roll her eyes to you too?
I get more back talk and crazy text messages than I get the rolling eyes. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and one of them woke me up late last night, and I was pretty irritated about that. You know, you could have waited until the morning for that one, but just had to come back at something I had to say, right? So
Yep.
Gotta have the
It
last
is.
word, right?
Instant.
I'm
At
sorry.
least,
Welcome to Chris's world as a middle school teacher.
Oh,
I get there's a spider in my room. Can you come kill it? Why were you up?
oh,
But you
I
could
still get
see
that
the
one.
spider.
I still get that one, and they're 17 and 18. So okay, what do you do if I'm not here today? You know, so
Exactly.
yep, I still get it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you do.
Thank you all as well. Appreciate it. You guys have a great night. We'll see you soon.
You too.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
Take care.
All right, so then moving on to park and recreation matters. Draft minutes at Park and Recreation Commission meeting. Director Case.
I just want to say thank you to Kathleen. I was, I think I was out of town. I don't know. The summer is a very sketchy time for me. I'm rarely home. If anybody wants to rob my house, go for it.
I saw that on the minutes and I wasn't sure if that was a typo.
No, I was there. Hence why it was really great when Eric brought up a bi-monthly meeting for the fire commission too. There's nothing, I don't remember what to report on. We talked about the trail. What else did we talk about, Eric? I think that's really it.
The trail, and then went over the capital needs
Oh.
planning documents for Park and Rec that was shared with the board at the last meeting.
Yeah. And then, oh,
That was about it.
the other thing that was brought up was the center dividers all along Miller Creek and the one that was right actually in close to your house, Chris. And basically we informed them to write the county because it's not Marinwood land, that it's really, we need to, if you want the medians done, that besides the ones that we already maintain because they're in front of the community center, to write the county. So.
Given that, because I kind of noticed that the median had like that one crosswalk that I'm always nervous I'm going to hit somebody, kind of closer to
Pathway?
Yeah, it's where the pathway. It's right by Joe's house, but I don't know the address is there.
Yeah.
Like, is there a way that we as an elected group can put some pressure on the county to do something there?
So
Even if it's informal?
I had asked Eric about this. Like, we're all apparently sharing brainwaves because I had asked Eric about this. Was it 2 weeks ago, Eric? 3 weeks ago?
Possibly.
And I had just done a drive out to Fairfax and I really enjoy in San Anselmo and I really enjoyed their medians. And I was like, Eric, who do we need to talk to get this going? So I think that we all agree that as a board, we should call the county and see what we can do because it's the county, as Eric said. But Eric, I'll let you talk. But I just want to let you know, brainwaves.
Well, can you also add the eucalyptus tree to that conversation?
Yeah, I think that I think what I was thinking was all of those could be done in a way that were fire prevention and also be beautiful. Because if you look at what they've done in San Anselmo, because they have a fire issue out there too, especially with their one way in and one way out, just like us. They have some really cool rock stuff that's going on. And then they do California natives that are hardy for fire. So
Right, but I think San Anselmo is its own city.
exactly, that's what Eric said to me. So we're gonna have to
It's not
reach
county.
out. I know, we're gonna have to reach out to the county and see if as a board, we could possibly take this on and see if there's a way that we can, through fire mitigation or some other forms of grants and possibly also our own funding to try to spruce that up and make it look and also function better so that we're not afraid we're going to hit people because the pathways are being blocked or things are going to explode in fire because of the eucalyptus trees. And it just kind of goes with how the changing of our whole neighborhood and with the property values and everybody, wanting things to look a little bit nicer now. So
I don't disagree with you, but I don't feel like this is something that the CSD should be taking on with the lack of manpower that we have to control, to maintain it, number one. And number two, the issues that we already have with our maintenance crew every 3 months getting a new manager that Luke has to go walk through to just get our walkways maintained. So I think that it's not just taking it on and it's a quick project. It's a big project that.
Well, no, I know it's going to be a big project and it's not, but I was hoping that we could possibly do it in a way that it would be more lower maintenance, and on top of it, that we could work with the county to possibly work with us on this. And when I'm saying that us as the board, I don't think that this necessarily will be a CSD issue that we have to do. I think that we should reach out as a CSD, but then as individual board members and everybody, we should all push for more pressure on the county. And maybe if there's enough squeaky wheels, they'll address it. Since Eric says that this has been, I'm going to stop talking and saying what Eric says, but let Eric talk. But from what I understand, this has been a question that he's brought up to the county and other people have brought up.
For
Correct,
many,
Eric?
many years, for many,
Yeah.
many years.
Many years, many people, and it's always seemed to fallen on deaf ears, just like when they went to the eucalyptus trees, even Chief White, that bring from fire perspective, deaf ears. I would say, yeah, my best advice is just to reach out to DPW, maybe even the DPW director. Technically, it falls under the roads division. And I think that it's fine to identify yourself as this, and you're sharing a community concern that has come to the district, but keeping in mind that the roadways are not within the district's jurisdiction. So as far as having a formal stance from the district goes.
Yeah.
Director Shea?
I would like to chime in on this one. I think that we could inform our illustrious local board member of supervisors. I believe it's still Damon Connolly. Maybe
Harry
he
Sackett.
pulls, well, she's not yet. It doesn't happen until
Yeah, it's till November.
December. So Damon's still the supervisor. So if he could maybe utilizing the same effort he dragged our maintenance facility into county, maybe he could put some weight towards the Department of Public Works. Just a suggestion.
I like it.
Yeah. Good idea. All right, anything else from the board on the draft minutes? All right, anything from the public?
1 second, please. Stephen.
Yeah, I would just like to second what Bill Shea suggested. Damon Connolly and Mary are both really customer service oriented, and I'm sure they would welcome the call from.
Oh, Stephen, I don't hear you.
Yeah. Maybe his computer crashed again, like he said it was having issues.
All right.
Should we move on? Can we let him say
I
his thing when he gets back on?
Yeah, Stephen, we can come back to you. All right, any other public comments? Seeing none, we can move to recreation and park maintenance activity reports.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights on my report. Just give you an update on kind of how the summer's going. Camps have been going great. We're in our 5th session right now, and kind of piggybacking on what Chief White was talking about, we have had a lot more COVID cases in our camps than we were expecting after running camps the last 2 years. But thankfully, we have not seen COVID spreading through individual camp groups. They seem to be these one-offs each week. Different camps are getting hit, different staff members, and we have not seen anything kind of spreading through one of our individual camp groups, which is good. We've been able to continue to keep every camp group running, and it's just been a handful of cases kind of throughout the weeks, but more than we were expecting for sure, both with the camps and the staff. But thankfully, things are running really smoothly in spite of that, and it's been great to be back to a normal summer. We've had a return to offering field trips every other week for our oldest 3 age groups. And we've had 2 so far, and those have been going great. And we've got another one tomorrow. We're going to the Oakland Zoo. So that should be really fun for those kids. We've brought back offering special presenters and special events for the camps. We've had DJ dance parties, and we've had like a petting zoo. The reptile guy was here, and a bunch of fun special things for the different camps, which has been really great to be able to reintroduce that after a couple of years off. The kids have been, I've got 2 kids in camp this year. I know Eric's got a couple, and a bunch of you have some too. And it's been great just to see some of the dress up days and some of the special things, and they come home just ranting and raving every day. So that's been a really nice return to normalcy from that end. In spite of, we've had a few headaches trying to fill vacancies, as we had some staff out sick, and trying to juggle the schedule has been more challenging than a normal year. But thankfully, Robin has been doing a great job and her supervisor staff, just filling the gaps and shuffling people around as needed and making sure everyone has the supervision that they need. So that's been going really well, and we're feeling good as we go into kind of the halfway point, or just across the halfway point for summer, that we'll continue to have a good summer moving forward. The pool season is also going really well. We did some tweaks to the schedule this year to try to better accommodate our different user groups. And while that's been a little bit of an adjustment to just make sure we're getting used to, it seems to be serving everyone really well. The swim lessons have been going really strong. We've been virtually full all summer, and we've been giving more time for the camp kids as well as for our adult lap swimmers, and that all seems to be working out really well. We've got a lot of positive feedback from all of our different user groups, and I think our pool rentals, which mostly take place on the weekends, we offer 2 different spots for people to rent out for pool parties during our recreation swim hours. Those have been seemingly full every time slot, almost every weekend. So seems like people are just back at the pool in full force. The weather has helped. It's been, the last couple weeks we've had some 90+ degree days, and so it's been just good to see people feeling comfortable coming back to the pool, and we've been able to accommodate the crowds. I got quoted at a story this weekend from the IJ. They're doing a story on a lifeguard shortage in the Bay Area. It's really a national lifeguard shortage. It's been going on for a long time, but they were focusing kind of on the acute shortage from the post or current COVID years. And that article was short, but it was good, and it made me feel. I've mentioned it before, but I just want to. I'm very grateful that we've actually been able to staff our pool programs, and I just want to give another kind of shout out to John Paul, who oversees the pool for us, for being able to hire and keep enough staff on the schedule to run everything. And he's been doing a great job with that. I know a lot of our neighboring pools are really suffering with staffing shortages, and we are as well. It's definitely been tricky, but we've been able to maintain our schedule and keep all of our programs running. And it's been more challenging this year, but we've been able to do it. And I know that it's a little bit of luck, a little bit of our process and our feeder programs and the way we operate. But also John Paul has done a great job of recruiting and keeping people on staff that maybe had other options. So we're hoping that stays the case through the rest of the summer and through the fall. But in the meantime, I'm happy that we're open and things are going okay with the pool. The main thing, just in terms of our special events, we've now had 2 Music in the Park installments this summer, and both of them have been really wonderfully executed and attended. 2 great bands, I guess 3. We had 2 the first installment, and we had 1 this last week. Pamela Parker performed on Friday. And she had a great band. We had a little bit of smaller turnout this time around. I think a lot of people were out of town. It was a little bit of a cooler night, but a great event. And I think everyone had a really good time. And we've got 2 more Music in the Park Friday nights coming up. And then in the middle, this 2 weeks from tomorrow, or 2 weeks from Saturday, or 1 week from Saturday, is our Summer Brew Fest, which will be taking place on Saturday, the 23rd from 3 to 7. And we're really excited about that. We will also have live music, as well as some breweries doing beer tasting, and we'll have some food. So that'll be a fun event. I'll be putting some more details out online and through our marketing channels about that, but that's looking to be a really great event. Hope some of you are able to make it to that. But that's our next special event, and then the Music in the Park series will continue after that. And then just our staff, we're starting to work on our fall programming. It's very challenging to try to plan for the fall and winter while we're in the middle of the summer chaos, but staff have been putting together the schedules for our adult classes and our youth classes and different programs that will be taking place this fall and winter. And we're hoping to have our schedule of programs out towards the end of the summer. So I'll update everyone on that probably at the next meeting, but they're working hard at that, and that's coming together. On the parks maintenance side of things, the staff have been working hard out at Creekside Park. We've been doing some changing up the landscaping out there, refreshing things, fixing some retaining walls, taking out some dead shrubs, and just doing a lot of pruning and sprucing up. It's looking really good. We have a little bit more to do out there, but it's going to look really nice when everything's said and done. We also had some tree work done out there to trim up the big oak tree out there, to take out some limbs that needed trimming, and kind of clean up some of the other trees in the area. And it's starting to really come together. So if you guys have a chance, I wouldn't go out just yet, but in a few weeks' time, make your way out to Creekside and see a lot of the improvements that are going on out there. It's looking really nice, and the staff have been working really hard at that. We also had a big tree, kind of a giant branch from a tree, fall down in the open space out at Union Stone, behind Union Stone Lane. Landed on residents' property, but thankfully didn't damage any property, didn't damage any structures or any people. But it was a very large branch, and that was supposed to get taken care of last Friday, but it's now going to be taking place this Thursday. We got a tree crew going out to clean that up, which is good. And then just one thing that happened last week, we discovered a leak in the main park in the irrigation, but the crew was able to discover that and tackle that and get it all worked in about less than 3 days, which is pretty quick. And it's they were digging a big hole in the park right during summer camp, which is not ideal. It's also not ideal to have the water off in the middle of hot days in the summer, but thankfully the weather was mild enough. They were able to get it up and working, that the turf was not did not suffer too much during that. So a big thanks to the crew for being on top of that, for working super quickly, and for staying out of the way of the camps. No one fell in the hole, and everything's kind of back to normal. So that's all I wanted to touch on for Parks and Rec. Please let me know if you'd like me to discuss anything, or if you have any questions. Thank you.
No questions, but I have to say, I mean, I continue to be so impressed by your staff, and with the summer camps. First of all, I mean, I keep hearing, and from my own kids and others, just how wonderful that's going, as well as the swim lessons. And I know there's been challenges with staffing and the like, but you never would be able to tell. So I think that's a testament to the people on your team, Luke. So really appreciate that. Additionally, the work that the team's been doing on the Creekside Park. I walk by it every day, and I can see that it's a big operation. I can tell that a lot of work is going into that, and I know it'll be beautiful as it continues to develop. So appreciate that as well. So that's all I had to say.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I see Bill's got his hand up.
Hey, Luke, do you know about, there's a tree that broke off just down from the horseshoe pits adjacent to the new facility, and it fell nicely, right into the creek. Did you know about that tree?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yeah, I was made aware that, I think we saw that the next day. That whole drainage ditch, I'm working on bringing some people out from, that have helped us out with assessing some of the erosion in the creek.
I don't know if I mean, the way the tree broke off, it looked like about 5 feet up, it just snapped.
Right. No, I don't mean that tree was a result of erosion. That tree was, I think, just rotted out and fell. But that whole area next to the horseshoe pits is an area that does need to be addressed. I think we have seen a lot of erosion in there. The water has been cutting pretty deep, a pretty deep canyon down there. And I'm working on a project to kind of get a lot of the brush and everything in there cleared out, including that tree that fell. But because of the water that's going through there and the proximity to not only our horseshoe pits, one of our big assets, as well as the tennis courts right there. I'm asking some of our friends over there that help with, giving us some leadership and direction on that, to give us some guidance on exactly what the best approach is to preserve those areas on either side, and before we go in there and tackle too aggressive
walls.
Cement walls, we'll see. But anyway, so that's on our radar. But we're definitely working with them to give us kind of the best practice for what to do with the foliage.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And sometimes the best thing is to actually let some of the brush form a floor on the bottom and stay. It's not always the best practice to take everything out that's dead or has fallen. So I'm still waiting for some more visits from some of those individuals. But we'll be doing some work on that, probably most likely this fall, to kind of clean up that area strategically.
Okay, yeah.
And we
Cool.
still are a staff of 3. The last hasn't run away yet.
No, we are a staff of 3, and we've got some part-time help as well.
Yay.
It's amazing seeing all the kids and the pool and just you guys managing to do everything. And again, as you said, I've seen you guys keep that pool open even for early morning lap swim, even when the high schoolers were not available. And it's a big effort. And I just wanted to, again, say thank you to you and JP and everybody else. Sorry, I had to sneeze. And I did manage to mute it though, didn't I?
You did.
So just thank you. And the music in the park was amazing. And even the first one that we had back, lots of people from all around the community were there. So it was wonderful to see.
Oh, thanks, Yvonne.
And I would just reiterate those comments. As a guy who sees the pool operation from a little different vantage point than most, it's really impressive. And I've been around a lot of pools my entire life. And this is one that you guys should all feel very safe having your children not only learn how to swim, but when they start going down there by themselves, they are in I would argue, the safest pool that I've ever been around.
That's very nice of you to say, Chris. Appreciate that.
Should we open it up? I think Stephen managed to get back on. Is that Stephen who's got his hand raised?
So is there any other questions, comments from the board?
No, I would like to say, and again, reiterate to everybody on staff, but also Eric too, for the hours that you put into, because I know in this time, we really do thank our staff and Luke and everyone else, but Eric, you do a tremendous amount of work and really support all our staff members as well. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Right. So then moving on to public comment.
1 second. Stephen.
How are we doing? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
We hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to backtrack to the agenda. First of all, I agree with Bill Shea. Definitely call on Damon Connolly and Mary Sackett. They're both very committed to communities, and this is the issue that you want to get resolved is just exactly the kind of issue that they will get in and help us with. So anyhow, someone should formally contact his office to get the work done. Secondly, on the agenda, there was one thing on the agenda that was missing, and I brought up the issue again of alcohol use in our park, pointing out the fact that not only is it illegal according to our own bylaws to have alcohol in the park for non-permitted without a permit, it's also against the ordinance, the Marin County ordinance. And so I hate to be a blue nose about this, but honestly, it's out of control. And I don't know if you're aware, Marin County has some of the highest rates of alcoholism anywhere in California. It's an issue, and underage drinking is an issue. And so I think there are smart ways to address it. I know Kathleen, unfortunately, I'm just maybe not communicating well with Kathleen, but she thought that I was asking her to personally get involved with it. I'm not. I'm thinking that we can set up a policy and just make things clear to people, our expectations of behavior in the park. I want to compliment Luke once again. I think the work that his staff does is among the most important work that we do here. We create community, we build lives, build character, we help our children out. I mean, all the work he does is so very, very important, and I appreciate every little bit of it. And that, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I don't know if now is a good time to talk about it. Maybe at the end of the meeting, it's better time to talk. But I also wanted to thank the board in general for the way that you conduct your meetings and contrasting that with some of the things that happened at the last meeting. I'll wait to make that comment later, but anyhow, that's it for now.
Thank you, Stephen. Actually, I think Stephen brings up an interesting topic, but I'm assuming that we have a license to sell alcohol in the park when we have events like music in the park or the brew.
Yeah, that's correct, Lisa. For any of our Marinwood sponsored events that we put on where we sell alcohol, we do get a daily license to sell from the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control.
And that's why we have the flags.
The flags around the Music in the Park event are part of our effort to just control where alcohol is, taking place and making sure people don't leave the premises.
Okay.
That people
Yeah,
aren't
I don't
outside of the.
I don't drink at the Music in the Park, but I see plenty of people who aren't drinking, so it looks pretty orderly to me. But okay.
I don't think he's addressing, and Stephen, you can chime in next time you get unmuted, but I don't think his issue is the music in the park and whether we're legal or not. His issue is when it's being rented out by the public or the horseshoe pit. So there is, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but when you rent that barbecue area, there is a rule, and there's signs all over the pool and everywhere that say that you cannot have alcohol on the premises, but it is not I know that it is not a board, because I just went through our training, that it is not a board position for me to regulate that. If I am walking through the park, it really should be on the sheriff. The sheriff should be called if there is a violation of those rules. It should not be staff or the board. So that's where I hear you, Stephen, when you say there is an issue, but it really should be addressed by the sheriff at that point. So.
I appreciate that clarification, Kathleen.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's similar to like an unleashed dog, right?
Correct.
Many of our park areas, dogs are supposed to be only on leash. And yet there's a prevalence of unleashed dogs in the places where dogs are supposed to be leashed. And therefore it's on the person who may feel imperiled to contact the sheriff directly about, that unleashed dog and its owner. I'm just providing a parallel. I'm as far as I understand.
True. So,
Appreciate that. Thank you.
It's an enforcement issue, one way or the other.
Got it. All right. Well, appreciate the clarification. Thank you. All right. Well, then I guess that brings us to item H. Board members, items of interest, requests for future agenda items.
Just an update on the facility in terms of our move-in dates, and then also the area around and what the status is on that. And then possibly if you can hear before we do about if they're going to manage to build the bridge for us moving forward with trying to get grants for the pathway.
Keep you informed.
Thank you.
I would have just a request, and it doesn't need to be next meeting or the meeting after, but as we're moving into fire season, I'm interested to know what progress we've made, if any, about the cell coverage in the spotty areas of cell coverage in our community.
I still don't have service up at Lucas Valley, so.
Neither do I.
So apparently we haven't gotten anywhere.
Right. But I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and I've seen a bit of it. So anyway, it's just a request.
If you stand in the garden at Lucas Valley where the chickens are, I can send texts. So just so you know, if you need to send text, you can sit in the garden.
It's a place where the bat signal comes through.
Yes, the chicken signal.
The chicken signal. All right, any others? None? All right. Anything from the public?
1 second.
Hi. Boy, it makes it hard to have a conversation and clarify if I don't get put back into the conversation. At no point was I ever suggesting that any board member be in charge of telling people they can't drink. I do think as leaders, you can say, hey, these are our expectations. Actually, I think a good way to resolve something like this is to have, just a couple kids that are basically, you might want to call them security, you might want to call them concierge, park, people that help around the park. And they would have duties like making sure rules are being followed, the reservations are being taken care of, and just overseeing activities in the park. They would carry a cell phone or something to contact the police if necessary. At no point would they be expected to enforce laws, but they would just be there as a kind of friendly face of, guest services, if you will. I don't think we should look the other way on this. The reason the horseshoe pit has my ire is because you have to walk right through the crowd there. And I don't mind doing it. I drink. I'm not opposed to drinking, but there are people that have problems with alcohol, their children, and quite frankly, we have rules against this, and let's make sure that our rules get followed. To compare it to dogs off leash, I guess is okay, because dogs could create problems of their own. But I think I think being friendly means all user groups have an equal say in what's going on in our park, and we do have guidelines of behavior, and let's make sure that people are following them. I did want to say one thing about the board. The board, I think, has conducted itself really well. The last meeting, I was subject to repeated personal attacks, and it was really kind of disgusting, but it also gives you an idea of how the board meetings used to go. And I would hope that in the future, should personal attacks like that occur, that the conversation would immediately be shut down and the person be reprimanded on the spot, and don't allow that behavior. Don't accept it from any one of us, including me, if we get that far off base. Did you shut me off?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, and
So anyhow,
appreciate
I like I said, I thank everybody. I actually think we're all kind of on the same pages of things. We all want a better park. We all want a better community, and there's no reason why we can't do that. It's just a matter of faith and trust in each other. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. All right, well, with that, we move to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, well, then call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Hi, guys. Good to see you.
Good night.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you.